Welcome back to Digging Deeper. Today, we're talking about freight. Is it coming back? We think so, and you better get ready. You better become efficient. And one of the best ways to become efficient is how you manage phone calls. All that coming up next. And we're back. Today on the call, the webinar, whatever it is, we have Aaron Mowery, our VP of Sales, and we have Dustin Worley, our Senior Strategic Account Manager, Executive.
Strategic
President.
Account Executive.
Yeah.
It'll be in the graphics. It does seem, I've talked to several people, it does seem like we are having some positive signs around freight. Correct? Anybody agree?
We do agree. Yes, sir.
That would be correct, David.
All right. So when that happens, when we see that happens, what does that do traditionally to driver interest, lead activity, cost per hire? What happens to it in that case?
So we were actually just having this conversation this morning as a team. It was good timing. And our team, I think we all do a very good job. We've got a lot of seasoned veterans.
Yep.
Monitoring campaign strategy and ROI for each client. And so just looking at daily, typically looking at, the month over month, week over week, leads, cost per lead volume, all that, hires, pipeline. And we just have to keep reiterating in the conversation this morning, hey, we typically see February is month over month down about 20 to 25% versus January, because January is always
Big
seasonally
spike.
high. Right.
Yep.
But there's also a few caveats that, hey, freight has picked up. So when freight picks up, what percentage, I don't know what it is, but a certain percentage of drivers who are now maybe getting a bigger check or about to get a bigger check or drove an extra 400 or 500 miles may not do that job search this week like they normally would, if that makes sense. Like, hey, I'm a little happier.
Yeah.
So now you see that drop a little bit. You see February in general is down from January. So anyway, we're looking at some of those nuances, and then freight picks up. So things are looking a little better.
Yeah.
And then the last piece I would say, which we're all happy about, when freight picks up, we've had clients either add budget or come back into the market, need to advertise and haven't in a long time.
Right.
So now you got more competition too. So when you're looking at February versus January, there's a lot of factors that go into that. We were actually just having kind of an internal meeting about it this morning.
So it's kind of like a inverse correlation.
I like it.
It's a good word.
I don't know if it makes sense. Yeah. One's up, one's down. So essentially, would you say the need to be efficient with your recruiting increases or decreases or stays the same? Or what would you say should be the reaction of fleets in this circumstance? If that makes sense.
Yeah, they definitely need to be more efficient.
More efficient?
Yeah.
Because there's less drivers looking, essentially.
Possibly less drivers looking, more competition. So you could see conversion rates on forms spike or increase. You could see those really cheap, network leads that used to convert. As more people enter the market, those will become more diluted.
Oh.
Those could get more expensive.
Right.
So it would be more important than ever to be more efficient with what you have.
Okay.
I have something a client mentioned last week, and I thought I'm going to mess it up because I don't remember exactly how he said it.
But don't mess it up.
Well, I thought it was pretty impressive. He at least made the comment. He said, hey, we know over the last 2 years, we were hiring drivers on sale.
Mm-hmm.
And again, he followed it up with something else. Like, I know that it's about to get more expensive and that we were just living in a very good, easy time to hire drivers.
Yes.
I wish more people looked at it that way. But yeah, he was anticipating it to get much more expensive and competitive.
How many people do you think that way?
From the VP of recruiting department perspective? I don't know. What do you asked that for a reason?
Oh, I think a lot of people have unrealistic expectations. And so I would be curious if everyone is on that train
Yeah.
of,
I would say half, in my opinion, just guesstimating, but I would also be empathetic on their end
yeah.
when operations or the executive team has become used to,
abundance.
$5,000 gets you this,
Mhm.
and it's not getting you that now. They're feeling pressure, so I understand that.
Yeah.
And in a softer market, I imagine, softer freight market, you can also not only are drivers per se to hire,
Less expensive.
less expensive,
Dollar goes further.
dollar goes further, all good ways. We can bleep out. That you also, along with that, you can be more selective, and not necessarily about, because sometimes your qualifications needed are that's what they are. They don't change, but maybe you can be more selective about, this guy's changed jobs a lot in the past,
Right.
or I don't have a good feel about this guy, and then I imagine some of those got to go by the wayside too, right?
I think that was the biggest factor I saw in the last 2 years was when they reviewed applications and, hey, this driver had 4 or 5 jobs in the last year,
Mm-hmm.
not even considering it.
Well, I've seen over the last year or two more and more putting in like a basically there was a better fit.
Mm-hmm.
Like this person would qualify under certain circumstances.
Right.
Well, that's an actual status you're saying?
Or a tag,
Or a tag,
either one.
Yeah, yeah.
Depends on. But anyway,
So
I'm
not
just
disqualified, but just better fit.
correct, better fit.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't
Being more selective.
I don't know if that's HR legal, but
Well,
but either way, they were definitely being more selective. Basically, like, hey, I can come back to this person
right.
if I really need it.
Tentatively, we're positive about where the freight market's headed. We've had several clients kind of say the same thing, which means drivers might be a little harder to come by. And also, I think I've also noticed that, living through different, bear and bull markets when it comes to freight, once it gets rolling really good, it's harder to be, even though you need to be more efficient, it's kind of harder to plug leaks in the funnel. It's harder to onboard new tech. It's harder to kind of take a step back and work on recruiter coaching and things like that. So it would seem to me, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, it seemed to me in these next few months, it would be an opportune time. I guess it can, before it gets crazy, if it's going to, now would be an opportune time to kind of work on building those efficiencies in that are going to help you kind of have a leg up when competition increases and you're not as able to be as selective and you can't do 3 or 4 calls with each driver sort of thing and sort of thing. So if I'm making you in charge, you're now VP of recruiting at Aaron's Trucking, you're VP of recruiting at Dustin's Trucking. If you were going to try and make your recruiting team more efficient, what's kind of some easy wins are some things that you would look at first to make yourself more efficient in anticipation of drivers being more selective, less search volume, that sort of thing?
Yeah, there's quite a few things. So if I'm a VP of recruiting and I'm just putting my hat on based off what I'm hearing from other folks, they've probably downsized or streamlined. Hey, if I only need to hire 5 drivers a week, then I don't need 3 or 4 recruiters. And they cut it down to 2. So that would be my biggest concern is you're not going to go out and hire a recruiter right off the bat. So how can I get the best out of the team I do have? So, one thing is, and we've talked about it before, we see some clients that do a great job, but if you can just have recruiters recruit, sell the job, more of a consultant, I would say, than a salesperson, but and not do the other stuff.
What's the other stuff?
Travel, processing, background checks. We've got some clients that even tie retention back to recruiting, so they have to keep in touch with the driver after they're hauling loads. That would be a process thing I would change. And then the other one, we had a call with a client the other day. They had good data. They know how many applications it takes to get a hire, which I believe most fleets probably track that pretty well. So it is somewhat of a math it's a numbers game, a math problem when they say, hey, we need another 3 or 4 hires a week. So I know I need this many applications.
Right.
And they come to us on a marketing side and say, get me more applications. And we, a great client, we talked together and said, hey, this is on both ends. If you need more applications, how many applications are you currently having your team take over the phone?
Right.
Because we have, we do a lot of call disposition reports and monitoring those calls. And a lot of it is good conversation, go fill out the app and call us back.
Right.
So anyway, that would be the 2 things I would say is have your recruiters recruit,
Yep.
like be consultants in that, that
Yep.
be it. And then second, consider a minimum. We said 2 a day per recruiter. So each recruiter should be able to get 10 phone apps a week.
Okay.
Would be what I would say.
So take apps over the phone and optimize the time of your recruiters.
To recruit specifically.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah. Well, and to that, and to add to it, I would somehow look into the if we're talking about phone calls,
Mm-hmm.
look into the phone system, and if I don't know what my missed call rate is, my how many of those calls that I am missing, what percent are leaving voicemails that I can actually call back, and if I can figure that out, maybe if it's a high percent, then there's
Right.
things for you. If it's a low percent, then hey, great, move on to the taking apps over the phone and stuff like that. But if it's a really high percent of missed calls, like I have some clients that miss 70% of their phone calls. So we're talking 300 or 400 phone calls a month missed.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
But yet their call to hire ratio is like 10-1. So it's like when they do talk to them, they can get them processed and get them going.
So there's a lot of hires in there, potential hires, right?
If the numbers are even anywhere relatively close, then there could be 10 to 20 more a month. Easy.
What would you say, like, is there a range of like, okay, you're going to miss 20% of your calls. That's an okay. You're probably okay there. All right. What is the number of like, you're missing this many. This is outrageous. What's kind of the range? Give me a
70
gradient.
ain't good.
70 ain't good. I mean,
write that down.
I don't know, less than 5% maybe.
But
I think you need to figure out too, in a perfect world, you would figure out how many of those phone calls are just following up on a current app and how many are actually new drivers looking for a job. So you need to also figure that part out too.
Still, they're both important.
They're both important, but the guy or the person calling back saying, "Hey, Aaron, I just wanted to check on my application," that person is definitely going to leave a voicemail, more than likely.
I'm not arguing with you, so I completely agree. My concern is a lot
Sales
of
101.
A lot of VP of recruitings would say something similar to what you just said, and maybe I'm biased from a marketing perspective. Why is the driver having to follow up on his app, his or her application? So that is frustrating to me as well. They're ready to go. To me, there's a problem with communication, speed, that if they shouldn't have to follow up on.
Yeah, I mean, and that could just be like tweaking the recruiter's conversation though,
Right.
because maybe they submitted some information. Hey, we're waiting on a drug test to come back. Hey, we're waiting on this, and they're like, oh, I went and did it.
Do they have automated progress updates? Like, how you're doing a checkout and it says like 3 of 5 things completed or whatever. Do recruiting departments have like automated, hey, your application's been processed. Next point is.
Well, I do think a few clients have good process where they are kind of in the scope of the recruiter's daily job is to follow up with just a check-in. Here's where we're at.
You kind of gave a good example. Both of you said things around the idea of optimizing the time of the recruiter so that they're spending time on things that are actually going to provide hires and not outside of those things. One thing you mentioned is just even following up with drivers who are wondering where they're at as far as in the whole process. What are some things that fleets could do to better optimize the time of the recruiters?
Texting before you, again, I feel bad because I've said this before, but texting before you do the outbound call.
Yeah.
I think a lot of times a recruiter just goes through their checklist and they make their outbound calls. They log it in their system, either left voicemail, whatever. But just changing that, tweaking a text or a personalized text first. Hey, this is Aaron, about to give you a call. Follow up on your application or want to talk to you about a job opportunity, be on the lookout for the number. That to me is going to streamline their process because their answer rate will at least double. It may triple.
I'll add to that. Maldonado would say in his coaching to make sure you put, hey, this is Aaron with XYZ company. Because now that's right. Any spam is going to say possibly Aaron with this company.
Yeah.
So you can kind of get around some spam stuff there. And then also we see it all the time with especially the automated messages. There's not a single benefit in their text.
Yeah.
It just says, hey, please complete your full application.
Right.
It doesn't say if it's home daily. It doesn't say anything about a sign-on bonus. It doesn't say, hey, are you still interested in making, $10,000 more a week or a month or whatever it is. It just says, hey, please fill out your full application.
Yeah. A text with a compelling benefit.
There's no, 99% of what we see, there's no reason to take action on a generic text or email.
Right.
So I want to get back to you something about a client that misses 70% of their calls. And then I think I want to kind of dovetail it with the idea that, or box joint, or splines.
So weird.
Woodworking. Your idea of recruiters. So you got recruiters missing 70% of the phone calls, trying to optimize the time that they spend on calls. Can we marry these two ideas to what are we trying to accomplish? Do we want them answering more phone calls or spending time on calls that are more valuable? Or is it a little bit of both? What are we trying to accomplish there?
I think depending on your fleet size, it would, or your recruiting department, it could vary.
Yeah.
We've seen several people, we're going to throw out the AI buzzword. Some have completely, stopped answering the incoming calls so they can focus more on their outbound efforts and be better at that.
Right.
And not waste their time with calls coming in of not qualified drivers out of the area, all of that. The AI assistant can pre-qualify them for you. They get them into 10th Street or Double Nickel or whatever the system is that you're using.
iSIMS, Workday, SuccessFactors.
Yeah,
all of
HubSpot. All of them. Let's give a plug for all.
No, I'm just saying, we do have those integrations, so it does go in.
Such as,
but no. So I think that's if you have a smaller department, 1, 2, maybe 3 recruiters, but yet you have a massive amount of volume coming in, whether that's your budget or whatever. Especially and having to answer calls coming in from drivers that are either complaining, trying to get the dispatch, trying to get the safety. The recruiter shouldn't be dealing with any of that. And then all of a sudden once you get rid of all that noise.
How do you get rid of that noise? How does AI, how can you use AI to filter out the noise?
He's 100% right here. And we've had a few clients that are using the call agent right now. And he mentioned the recruiter's focusing on the outbound call from somebody they've maybe pre-qualified or a full application already.
Yep.
But there is a lot of, I'm surprised, just doing this a long time, I think we just always think inbound phone calls are king, and they are very good. When a driver's ready to talk, you should be willing to talk to them.
Right.
But a large percentage of the calls that are coming in, I don't want to say junk, but just little things like, do you hire in Jackson, Mississippi? How much is your lease payment?
Yeah.
How many days is orientation? The agent answers those questions. So the driver gets what they need very quickly, gets off the phone, and you don't mess up the recruiting departments, especially when he's talking about 1 or 2 recruiters.
Right.
There's only so many phone calls they can answer at a time. So that to me has been a huge blessing and not even.
I think it's 1 at a time.
Well, especially too, if your process, whether it's you mean it to be your process or, sometimes it is what it is. If the recruiter is just going to answer the phone and then tell them to go fill out an application anyway, AI can do that.
Yeah.
Hey, yes, we hire in Jackson, Mississippi.
Yeah.
Yes, we have orientation. Yes, whatever. Okay, great. Got the information. And then you just send them straight to the application.
Right.
I don't need to take a person's time
Yeah.
when that recruiter could talk to that driver about their lost dog, for 30 minutes, and now you've really wasted time.
And that it goes nicely with what he was saying was
That was my plan.
you want your recruiters to be consultants, being able to sell the job, not sitting there answering questions and telling people to go fill out apps. I mean, if that's all your recruiters are doing, then
Yeah.
I don't mean this, but at that point, they could essentially all be replaced by AI if their only job is to field basic questions and tell somebody to go fill out an app.
Yeah, that's just an order taker. Like
Yeah.
they're not going to be replaced by AI because you have to have the human element, and you
Right.
have to sell the position and explain why this one
Right.
is better than that one.
And
But the AI can gather the information, get what's important, what are you looking for, et cetera, and then send a text message
Right.
with a full application. Hey, just in case you want to go ahead and get this started, here you go.
Yeah.
Then when the recruiter has time to get into 10th Street or whatever and see, oh, I see that David filled out an application. Now I know what he's looking for. I know where he's at. I know now I can call him and actually have an intelligent conversation with him.
And the fact that the agent asks when's the best time for someone to follow up with you, we're capturing that information as well. So now the recruiter has a better idea when they can call back.
It's a good baseline. I don't know that I would use it as gospel.
No. But I mean, we're asking the question.
Right.
And so
yes.
we are getting good information on,
Yeah.
hey, don't call me after 5 or whatever.
And I think too, like some of the missing, like, so some carriers have, said, hey, most of our calls coming in, it's just people following up on their current applications.
right.
It's like, okay, well, we'll figure that out. We'll talk about that later. But I think some part of the missing element with the AI piece is it is going to give the driver a pleasant customer service experience every time.
Mm-hmm.
She's never they're never sick. They work 24 hours a day. They're always happy, and there's every time a driver calls in, it's going to get answered.
Right.
And so you have more of a chance to. I at least got that driver's information. What, less than 15% fill out or leave a voicemail?
Yeah. Around 15 to 20%.
Yeah, 15 to 20%. So 80%, whatever. I'm not a mathematician. Don't leave a voicemail. So there's that part you're missing.
Yeah. So 80% of the drivers that call in that are not connected to a live recruiter will not leave a voicemail. And if they don't leave a voicemail, the odds of you getting them back on the phone are pretty low. And you don't even know if you want to get them back on the phone because you don't know why they called.
That's exactly right.
So you're really talking about a lot of efficiency waste.
That's right. That's what the data says. It's not what we say. So, but yeah, Aaron could call and you see a missed call and he's trying to get to safety.
Yeah.
Or he's trying to talk to HR.
Yeah,
or
and you wasted 20 minutes trying to
whatever.
get Aaron
Or he
on the
doesn't even
phone.
have a CDL.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh, I got to call these missed calls back. And you don't even know if they're viable.
Obviously, this is unique, but I thought it may be worth sharing. If not, we will cut it. But long story short, a gentleman calls in, and obviously we have the call disposition report that's capturing this stuff and flagging it. But call comes in after hours on a holiday, and this is not a driver. This gentleman says, gets the agent, and she asks, "Are you looking for a job?" He says, "No, I need to speak to someone. I have a driver I'm concerned about." Well, we had pre-programmed her even after hours to an internal after hours dispatch phone number that I don't think is readily available for the public.
Yeah.
Normally, the public would just be calling the normal switchboard, which would go to a voicemail.
Yep.
But we have her transferring to an internal switchboard or I'm sorry, not switchboard, but after hours dispatch.
Yep.
So she basically kicks him over to dispatch, does a warm transfer. And again, long story short, this guy says, "I'm getting text messages from this driver. I can't tell if he's on your yard or if he's out hauling a load, but he's saying he's not doing well and potentially wants to harm himself."
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, they ended up, dispatch took it very seriously and ended up being able to contact that driver and check on him and make sure he was okay. Again, I don't want to tout the AI agent too much, but without that client having it active, that person would have just gotten a voicemail. They wouldn't have been able to reach after hours dispatch. So I don't know. I thought that was kind of cool
that is cool.
she was able to handle that and get them over to somebody.
So let's just say you don't like AI and you're like, no, I'm not there yet. You still have the disposition report to where, like, if you're not dispositioning your calls to figure out, like, here's an example. There's a client that I've worked with for years, and they probably tell, 60 to 70 drivers a month that they'll send them an application. Because I can see send app, and then you see the transcriptions of the call. You see, you can listen to the recording or whatever. But then they only hire about 10 of them. And it's like, okay, without that report, I wouldn't know that there's 50 more drivers that either clearly qualified on the phone,
right,
or your recruiters are doing a terrible job of qualifying people on the phone.
When you say qualified, they were good enough to send them an app.
They were good enough for the recruiter to tell them, hey, I'm going to send you an application.
Okay.
right.
Okay. So if you're telling, 60, but then only hiring 10, there's a massive gap there.
Right.
Okay. So you find one or two nuggets there. And, so anyway, I think that's a huge piece of it too. It's just knowing, like, how many drivers did we tell we sent an application? How many didn't qualify? And you got to figure that out.
And do you find a lot of times in that example or others that you have the recording, it's been dispositioned as sent application, but then when you're doing kind of a pipeline review with the client, there's not even a profile created in their system. Like, they don't even show that call
that's
even
right.
happened.
Yeah.
Which is another thing the AI agent does.
So where you would marry the two would be, instead of now, you're still going to send them that application, you're still going to gather that information. But yeah, I see it all the time where, like, we'll spot check them. And my experience is it's usually about 40%. So 40% of the send apps that, a recruiter told a driver, hey, I'm going to send you an application, because there was a phone call and not a form.
Right.
They never even made it to 10th Street.
Yeah.
They probably did send the application. They texted them, they emailed them, and everything, but there was no record in 10th Street
or any ATS.
Or any ATS. Sorry, there was no record of that, and so now it gets lost in my follow up and all of this stuff. And then if the driver does take action to fill it out, great, I got it. But if they don't, you can't send automated messages to them. You can't text blast them. You can't automate call them. You can't do anything because there's nothing there. So if you wanted to marry the two, the agent, again, would answer that on the front end. Your capture rate for calls and forms would now be 100%.
Yep.
And then you go on down the funnel.
Right. How much? I'm gonna end with this because I wanted to talk about the missed call calculator, but not even missed calls. I just want you to give me a gut. I mean, we can kind of throw some math out there. Your average fleet, whatever, how much potential media waste is there in a given month? And how much potential revenue loss is there in a given month? Just from not necessarily missed calls, but just mismanagement of calls, let's say. So not just missed calls, but like things where I called them and told them to send them to fill out an application, and then I had no way to follow up or check on that ever again. So how much do you think is wasted in there? Let's make it an easy 300 inbound calls a month.
I think it's, when you're talking an average fleet, I think it's more like 50 a day.
50 a day.
Now, again, that's not all advertising calls too. That's going to be from their website. That's going to be follow-ups.
Right.
But 50 a day is.
Well, let's make it 1,000 then, just so the math is easy. 1,000
a day
in a month.
Are we doing a month?
Yeah.
Okay.
1,000 a month. On average, how many of those are just going to go unanswered?
75, 80%, I think.
Yeah, I
missed calls, according to our data, wasn't it? We talked about it earlier. I think it's 80%.
Well, we said 80% never leave a voicemail, right?
80% don't leave a voicemail.
But how many people call in and then just never talk to a recruiter? 70, 80?
I'd have to pull it up, but it is something like that. Yes.
I mean, I have some clients that are, like they don't answer, they answer less than 10% of advertising calls. So I don't know what they're doing with their internal stuff.
Right.
And then I've got others that are,
Well, let's just say
90 to 95% answer rate.
Yeah, but I think he's right. It's not, I don't have it in front of me, but I think it's around 70%.
So then if it's 1,000 calls, 70%, so you got 700 calls go unanswered. How many drivers do you think potentially, how much does it cost to generate a call? If we say like $1,000 on average, how much is it going to cost to generate a call? It's like $38, some 40.
Let's do 25.
25?
25.
So, all right, so you got $25,000 spent. 70% of those are not answered. Are we going to say 70% of that is waste?
No. I mean, there's going to be a certain percentage that do leave a message.
Okay.
Will call more than once. So we
Right.
have found that, hey, the driver may call 3 to 4 times.
Yep.
And 3 times they didn't get an answer. So you don't lose all of them. if that
Right.
makes
So
sense.
maybe you lose 50% of the 70.
That's probably fair. Mm-hmm.
So then you're at 350. So then 350 missed calls or 350 calls that are just going to waste.
Yeah. Times
And-
$25.
$25. What's the math on that?
I got it.
This is why we recommend you use the calculator right here.
8,700.
Click here. So $8,700 in media waste. But in those 350, how many of those drivers potentially could you have hired, would you guess?
2.5% is the industry average.
So 350 times 0.025.
Yeah.
That-
So between 8 and 9.
And then how many in a month, if you had hired those the next month, what is your revenue per truck in a month probably?
20,000 a day, 22 days a week.
20,000 a day.
Revenue? No, I'm sorry.
It's about
600 a day, 22 days a week.
day. Yeah. 600-800 a day.
22 days a month. Dear Lord.
Wait, why are you in 22, 24 days in a month?
It varies. Because they're not running 7 days a week.
Yeah.
13,000-ish,
Per driver and 13,000 times 8.
105,000
So
per month.
we're basically saying the average fleet, because of the, let's say, unoptimized way in which they're handling phone calls
Or process.
or process, just process stuff that could be easily fixed with using some AI, some automation, maybe changing processes up a little bit, some simple tweaks. We're talking, you're going to regain $8,700 worth of media waste, and you're potentially gaining $100,000 worth of revenue just by the additional hires that you're making. You feel good about that?
Again, that's the average fleet. I think there's going to be
Right.
folks on both sides of that spectrum for
Yeah.
sure, but I think it's a fair number. And I don't know how you quantify the other piece that he mentioned earlier, just the improvement. You tip of the spear if it's first time a driver's interacting with your company, and if they actually get an AI agent that answers their questions and takes their information,
Right.
submits it, versus not hearing anything, or just leaving a voicemail, or in many cases sitting on hold for 20 minutes before they get prompted to leave voicemail. So anyway, I think there's a factor there too. Just what am I trying to say?
Yeah. Well, and I think
improvement to the brand.
Right.
well, and recruiters are typically trained to work out of their ATS. So you may not check your voicemails till the end of the day, right? Or again, everybody could be different. I don't know, but daily call reports or stuff like that. Sometimes those don't even go out till the next morning at like 6 a.m. But that lead comes into your ATS and you're on it like that. And so instead of that driver waiting potentially overnight or the next day to get a phone call back, it could be 10 minutes, right? Just because they're trained to work in this system on their computer.
Yep.
And so it's just a better overall experience.
Well, I think that's a good place to end it. Listen, I'm no Nostradamus, but it looks like freight might be creeping back up. You better get ready. You want to be as efficient as possible. Competition for drivers will go up. Search volume from drivers will go down. One of the great opportunities for you to become efficient is just how you handle your calls, how you manage recruiters' times. And a great way to do that is use AI. We have a call agent that helps you do that, helps you weed through some of the noise that recruiters are facing. We'd love to show you how that works. If you're interested in just how much potential value you could be losing, we do have a missed call calculator that you can download here. I'll throw up a link. We're about to do a live Q&A, so stick around for the live Q&A, and we can sort through it all.
Oh, I got something.
Good.
I call it a secret shopper. What do you call it?
Undercover candidate.
Undercover candidate. I would like whoever would be interested, if they would want us to do, we kind of do a cadence, 2 or 3 different calls to the recruiting department throughout the week. Maybe one in the morning, one at lunchtime, one in the evening.
Yep.
Just to see what that experience is. Because I feel like a lot of vice presidents recruiting haven't done it in a while or aren't aware what their system is. Like
Right.
how quickly is an option to leave a voicemail even there? I mean, sometimes you have to wait on hold forever. Do they automatically reroute you? Does it go to this has happened a lot. I think we've talked about it before. Send you to a voicemail box that's full.
We did it on this show one time we called, and it was a terrible experience.
Yeah. So anyway, if anybody wants us to do a little audit, I think it would be valuable to do before things start getting crazy.
Yep. We'd love to do that for you. But anyway, we'll see. We'll see you next time on Digging Deeper.